So we are now ready for our second panel discussion. The theme of our second panel discussion is how to attract and retain excellent researchers. So the aim of the session is to emphasize the importance of creating and maintaining excellent working conditions for researchers who are mobile. And that obviously has a range of different aspects. So this can include having the necessary and adequate legislative framework, ensuring equal pay for equal work, ensuring grant portability around Europe, and ensuring obviously adequate social security provisions for researchers, which is something that we also discussed in the first panel. And the objective of the panel is to give examples of different policies, practices, instruments that have been used in different national, regional, or even European contexts to see how to improve researchers' working conditions, and to ensure that we can find solutions to attracting, retaining, and reintegrating excellent researchers in different parts of Europe. We'll also be giving an overview of the challenges which exist in this area around Europe and some possible solutions. And finally, there are two very important European documents that are crucial in this regard and that will be a subject of the discussion. And these are the European Charter for Researchers and the Code of Conduct for the Recruitment of Researchers. And we'll be discussing these in more detail. So we have three panelists who will be each giving their presentations, and then we'll have a joint discussion at the end. And our panelists are Dr. Stijn Deloré from the European Commission's DG Research and Innovation, Dr. Thomas Jongwirth from the Scientific Council of the European Research Council, and Dr. Mustafa Munir Shorav from the Marie Curie Alumni Association, who is the chair of the executive committee there. So let me introduce our first speaker. So our first speaker today will be Dr. Deloré, who is a policy officer at DG Research and Innovation, dealing with the sector of universities and strengthening the European research area. He obtained his PhD in biotechnology in 2003 at Ghent University, in collaboration with the private sector, and worked as a researcher in bioscience and at KU Leuven in Belgium. He then moved to research coordination and research policy issues at KU Leuven and with the League of European Research Universities, and has acted as an expert in FP7 actions related to widening participation. And he was also a member of the Horizon 2020 MSCA advisory group before joining the Commission. So, Dr. Deloré, welcome to our conference, and we're looking forward to your perspective on how to attract and retain excellent researchers. The floor is yours.
Good morning. I trust you're all fine. Thank you for joining. Thank you to the organizers for inviting me. I intend to provide a policy perspective to the topic of this session, how to attract and retain excellent researchers. I want to briefly look back on the achievements of the ERA Priority 3, mobility, careers and an open labor market for researchers, discuss current challenges and propose some actions for future discussion. Despite current crisis, it's an interesting period with a new Commission College and a number of initiatives that are bound to provide input on researchers' careers, amongst which obviously is the communication on the future of research and innovation and the new European research area due to be adopted this summer. We're also working towards a possible communication on universities, including education, research and innovation aspects. In addition, we have a very dynamic sequence of council presidencies with top interest in researchers' careers and mobility, which provides for a fertile ground for progress on the topic. And in that respect, I would like to thank the Croatian government explicitly for this conference and for their call for action on brain circulation. Now, the EU is a scientific powerhouse and its performance has increased. Back in 2000, the European Research Area was launched to increase the efficiency of research innovation in Europe. The spirit of joining forces has been at the root of the era. COVID-19 crisis has demonstrated the importance of cooperation to rapidly deliver solutions to the most demanding needs. And the climate and digital transitions are more important than ever. R&I must lead the change. The new era has to be fit to deliver on these ambitions and the needs of tomorrow. The communication on the European research area is in preparation, and I don't want to preempt what will be in it yet, but ongoing discussions, views from stakeholders, and the opinion of ERAC point to a strong focus on strengthening researchers' careers and balancing brain circulation. Significant progress has been made in ERA in removing the geographical barriers to researchers' mobility and the quality of their training and career development. The MSCA, in fact, have played a pivotal role in spreading good practices, and the example has been taken up by many national funders. Let's have a look at some ERA tools designed to improve researchers' careers and to improve attracting and retaining talents. We have the Charter and Code for Researchers, the Human Researchers Strategy for Researchers, EURACCESS, and the Resaver Pension Fund. The European Charter for Researchers and the Code of Conduct for the Recruitment of Researchers has been adopted already in 2005 and since endorsed by over 1,200 organizations. I don't need to explain, I presume it's a set of general principles and requirements regarding good practices, good working conditions, open, transparent, merit-based recruitment, training and career development, and ethical as well as professional aspects. The Human Resources Strategy for Researchers, also known as the HRS4R label, was set up as the implementation mechanism of the Charter and Code. And in the meantime, 520 research organizations have been awarded this label, while 130 are endorsed the Charter and Code and are currently preparing to receive the award. You likely also know Article 32 in the Horizon 2020 Model Grant Agreement, if you are familiar with Horizon 2020, which basically makes the Charter and Code implementation during the project close to mandatory. I think that we can agree that the Charter and Code and the HR label or award have been effective tools, but at the same time we cannot deny that the Charter and Code is 15 years old and in need of a revision. Open science practices, for instance, are not in there. The discussions are ongoing on a possible revamping of the Charter and Code as part of the new era. A task force of the ERAC, the ERA Committee of the Council, is in charge of this. And in parallel, the Commission is conducting a stock-taking exercise and providing evidence, recommendations for the future Charter and Code, the HR label, and also on EURACCESS. EURACCESS, you're familiar with that, I presume. The portal of EURACCESS provides information on jobs, on funding opportunities, hosting offers, rights and privileges, etc. It has over 130,000 registered users. The EURACCESS Services Network every year solves or tackles over 450,000 issues related to researchers' mobility. It's a community of practice of over 1,500 people guiding researchers, mobile researchers. And EURACCESS Worldwide promotes Europe as an attractive research innovation destination to attract talent to Europe. The past 3 years it has organized 120 outreach events, and the MSCA and ERC usually feature in these, quite successfully attracting researchers. Now we can obviously build on these successes and reinforce EURACCESS as a strong talent management platform, as the Commissioner already mentioned, for the next generation of researchers and innovators. Perhaps less known is the first pan-European pension fund, Resaver. Called upon in the ERA communication of 2012, and it became fully operational in 2017. It solves some of the main issues mobile researchers face when moving between European countries, such as the vesting period, the difficulty with transferring assets, the administrative burden associated to, or at the beginning of retirement. The expansion of the pension fund is accelerating. So currently it's operational in Hungary, Austria, the Netherlands, Belgium, Italy, and Cyprus. And next countries will most likely be Luxembourg and Estonia. Now, the tools I mentioned are helping to attract and to retain research and innovation talents. The challenges remain. And these are the ones we would like to tackle in the future in the context of a new era. It also tries to respond to the Zagreb call for action from the Croatian government, from the council, I must say. Now, brain circulation across countries continues to be unbalanced, and you may have seen 2 weeks ago the publication of the Science Research Innovation Performance Report, showing there remains a divide in research innovation investments, which translate then into an even more pronounced divide in terms of RNA output across between the different countries in Europe. This obviously leads to important differences in the attractiveness of research and innovation system across the EU. Another challenge is the precarious employment conditions of early career researchers, which seems to have been deteriorating in several countries. The imbalance between the number of PhD graduates on the one hand and the number of tenure track positions or tenured positions on the other hand in academia has led to a situation in which many early career researchers are faced with temporary contracts, job insecurity, and a publish or perish pressure. This may push Europe's most talented individuals to opt for a career abroad. Thirdly, doctoral candidates and postdoctoral researchers with their specific skills and complementary skills could fill the current need for highly skilled people in the broader economy and society. So, to counter these challenges, we intend to set following objectives for a future era. And this is for discussion. We want to better retain and attract R&I talents in Europe. This is also the subject of this session. By improving career conditions and remuneration packages, both through national measures and complementary EU measures. This can help balancing brain circulation. But excellent research is at the core. An excellent research and training capacity is a prerequisite. So the ERA will need to help member states in unlocking their potential. Secondly, we want to incentivize mobility of researchers and innovators in key research innovation areas and also less obvious destinations. Think, for instance, on the Green Deal, the health areas, given the COVID-19 crisis response and recovery, and the mission areas. Or, for instance, excellent research infrastructures that are subject of structural funds but remain unexplored. Thirdly, we would like to boost permeability and employability of research and innovation talents across sectors, from academia to business, for instance, but also the other way around. We want to provide better access to all the intersector mobility schemes already available and strengthen them through Horizon Europe, notably through the MSCA. And we need to ensure that actors from outside academia are involved from the onset in the doctoral and postdoctoral training all across Europe, just like they often are for higher education. The Commissioner already mentioned our aim to develop a new European framework for researchers' careers. How can this help in attracting and retaining research and innovation talent? It should increase the recognition of the research profession and the PhD qualifications. Many great qualification and transferable skills PhDs have, but are often unexploited or undiscovered by other employers. This will also improve interoperability between sectors, and to this end we want to collaborate with employment policy. You may have heard about ESCO. It's the European Skills, Competences, Qualifications and Occupations Initiative, which is due to be revised next year. The aim of ESCO is to support job mobility across Europe, and therefore a more integrated and efficient labor market by offering a common language on occupations, on qualifications, on skills. Also, let's try to better structure the career within this common European framework. This has been tried before. You may remember the R1, R2, R3, R4 structure of careers, but the uptake remains quite low. And to solve the precariousness of early career research in academia, we probably need three things: clear prospects through a standard tenure track model, honest career advice with the possibility to diversify the career, and clear links with non-academic sector. We're also working very hard to develop shared practices and guidance for alternative career assessment of researchers, taking into account not only impact factors or the volume of publications, but also other elements like the quality of supervision, creativity, collaboration with business or other ecosystem actors, teaching, open science. Many countries are already implementing alternative systems, but likely it can be spread further. Finally, attractive remuneration packages. Attractive remuneration leads to best brains being attracted to a career in research. It's very important. It leads to more and better research innovation and thereby indirectly to a more competitive Europe. But defining pay levels is beyond EU competence, I should say this. But EU may act in the field of working conditions, such as the equal pay for equal work, and also monitoring social security gaps. And there's a reason why I talk about package. It's more than only the salary. Almost at the end. We will also, we are trying to improve our policy with those of employment. I already said this, I refer to ESCO. You may be familiar with EURES. This is a general job portal, and we could easily establish links, EURES and EURAccess. I also mentioned the potential revamping of the Charter and Code to build in more research-specific aspects like open science, to increase visibility and improve the buy-in. EURAccess could be turned into a European talent platform or talent management platform, which also monitors progress member states, which monitors remuneration packages. A recent study on industrial talent showed there might be merit in improving awareness and accessibility to funding opportunities for intersectoral mobility. We could bundle EU, such as MSCA and Erasmus, and national programs to improve visibility and complementarity and to be able to reinforce them through Horizon Europe. So, you are cordially invited to get involved in these discussions. For instance, by joining the R&I Days at the end of September, which will be a virtual event. We plan sessions on researchers' careers, on balanced brain circulation, on the future of universities, and on synergies between education on the one hand and research and innovation on the other hand. If you're interested in the European Pension Fund, check out the EURAccess website for the Resaver event that is taking place next week. And if you would like to be involved in the discussion on the future framework for research careers, the talent platform, the possible revamped Charter and Code, keep an eye on the consultation of the Charter and Code, the HRS for our award, and EURAccess. That's it for me. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Delorey, for your excellent presentation. I like the fact that you also made the link with the previous topic about the unbalance, disbalance in within the European research area with regards to, and you mentioned, so the unbalanced investment leads to unbalanced output and performance, which leads to unbalanced participation, and which then in turn leads to unbalanced attractiveness of research systems, and how you've also then presented how the European Commission has a range of instruments to try and address these issues, and a range of upcoming instruments that you plan. So it would be great to also hear from our participants today if you have any questions for Dr. Delorey or any comments about where the European Commission could prioritize to address some of the issues we've been talking about. Please feel free to participate via the chat on your platform. I'd hereby like to introduce our second speaker for this panel. Our second speaker is Dr. Thomas Jungwirth, who is a member of the ERC Scientific Council since 2015 and is now in his second term. He received his PhD in condensed matter physics from Charles University in Prague. He has worked as a NATO postdoctoral fellow at Indiana University in the USA. He was appointed Professor Chair at the University of Nottingham in the UK, and became head of the department of spinotronics and nanoelectronics of the Institute of Physics, ASCR, in Prague. He has co-authored 200 publications, and besides his work in the ERC and the Scientific Council, he's a member of the Research and Development Council of the Government of the Czech Republic, and is a member of the Learned Society of the Czech Republic and a member of the Academy of Europe. So, Dr. Jungwirth, warm welcome to this conference, and we look forward to hearing your perspective on how to attract and retain excellent researchers.
Good afternoon, everybody. So this is a real honor and pleasure to be part of this conference. So thank you very much for inviting the European Research Council to this meeting. And what I will try to do in these 10 minutes is to briefly introduce this European funding organization, which is here to serve researchers at their career stage, which is just follows the career stage served by the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. So European Research Council is here to support individual scientists. It's not for supporting organizations or institutions, but is for the excellent researchers working in these institutions. There is no predetermined subjects for the calls, and research excellence is the only evaluation criteria. I also like to emphasize that ERC is not just for basic science, it could be also applied research. ERC is funding frontier excellent research. It's in the DNA of ERC by legislation that it's a funding agency run by scientists for scientists. The government is by the Independent Scientific Council, formed by 22 independently selected researchers, and the execution is done by the dedicated professional agency, and the operation of the evaluation is really very large. The organization, we run over 75 panels, which are divided by research disciplines with about 1,000 panel members. But we also heavily rely on remote referees from all around the world. And the applicants are invited to present their proposals at interviews. There are 3 main calls, and they are divided by the career stage. We think it's very important that applicants who are just 2 years after PhD do not compete with researchers who've been in the field for decades. So it's divided into starting, consolidator, and advanced grants. For the starting and consolidator, ERC is looking for potential leaders in the field, while for the advanced grants, successful applicants are the ones which already are leaders in their respective research fields. These are individual single principal investigator grants, but we also have a funding scheme for 2 to 4 principal investigator groups, which are called synergy grants. Now, all these funding schemes provide very generous funding for running the research, but also for acquiring major unique equipment if necessary. We also have a top-up scheme, which is called Proof of Concept, and it's for ERC grantees who would like to develop their research ideas further towards applications or commercializations or in the direction of tech transfer activities. This conference is in Croatia, and I'd like to highlight here at least two of the Croatian success stories in ERC. ERC represents a very tough competition. It's around Europe is regarded more as a prize than a regular grant. So I believe Croatia is very proud of its grantees. Jadranka Šepić got her starting ERC grant in the 2019 call, and I believe this is in one of the research areas where Croatia is bound to be very strong, because it's the research on coastal planning and related to climate change. The other success story I'd like to highlight here is Iva Tolic and Nedan Pavin, who just got their Synergy grant. Here I'd like to point out that this is regarded as the most competitive scheme, even within ERC. So congratulations. And Iva Tolic can be considered, in the best meaning of the word, a real celebrity, because she already got her second ERC grant. In 2014, she got the Consolidator grant, and she was invited to the celebration of the 5,000th awarded ERC grant a few years ago. These are wonderful, beautiful stories, but overall, and now I will talk from the perspective of Czech Republic, which I believe is facing similar difficulties, Croatia, that we belong to the so-called widening participation countries, or EU 13 countries, the ones that are not very successful overall in the ERC competitions. And we can make many different statistical analysis, but all of those are telling us just one thing, and it's a nearly perfect correlation between the number of ERC grants that go to our countries and the overall level of research in our countries. Here is just an illustration of such a statistical analysis. This is the chart that shows the number of ERC grants plotted versus the number of top publications that are generated in a given country, and we see that the correlation is almost perfect. So clearly, without improving the overall research quality in these countries, it will be very difficult to become competitive in ERC grants. Now, let me just make a few, and again, this is from the perspective of a similar underperforming country, a few points which I believe are important and needs to be tackled in order to become more competitive. So I believe the first thing that needs to be improved is the internationalization. Internationalization is the thing that drives the pace and depth of current research worldwide. It's very hard, if not impossible, to run high-quality research at just local level. Here, I'd like to remind us that being locally outstanding would still be globally insignificant. So what we have to work on heavily is to stop inbreeding and follow best international practices. I believe in science, one of the very important things is to make English a second official language in research institutions. Without this, it's very hard to introduce efficient brain circulation and exchange of knowledge and people. Academic freedom is something which is essential to the research that is funded by the European Research Council. But we should not take academic freedom for granted. It has to come hand in hand with accountability. But accountability doesn't mean counting the number of publications or citations. The evaluation should be much more involved, should be independent and based on international peer review models. And we should not just stop at the level of evaluation. Evaluation should have major funding consequences. And it also should allow for stability and planning. So the evaluation cycles should not be yearly, they should be multiple year cycles. Recruiting is obviously essential for the research organizations to be able to compete for ERC grants. But it's not just recruiting. Equally important is retaining the most talented scientists in the research organizations. And this can only be done if researchers see their long-term perspectives. So the research environment should be attractive in terms of the infrastructure and people that work in research organizations. There should be sufficient funding opportunities for the researchers, and of course, the salaries should be meaningful. And very specifically about grants, and this applies to ERC grants as well, is that we should support runners-up. So these are the people who almost made it, who almost got the ERC grant, who were evaluated with the highest mark, but there were not enough funds available at the ERC for them to receive the grant. For these people, they already went through the very tough international competition, and the local organizations or the local governments should have funding schemes in place where they would support these people with matching funds, while simultaneously encouraging these talented people to reapply again to the European grants. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to the discussion of the panel.
Many thanks, Dr. Jungwirth, for your excellent presentation. Again, neatly linking into the previous panel as well about the issues of widening participation countries and the range of challenges that we've had. And interestingly, again, reiterating some of the conclusions of the previous panel about the importance of promoting internationalization and mobility as a normal part of the research environment in countries. You mentioned, for example, English as a second language was a kind of normal part of a research culture within countries, to kind of break the closed academic circles and to really emphasize brain circulation as a way forward. So I look forward to coming back to some of those questions in the discussion. And again, I invite all our audience to feel free to submit your questions, maybe your experiences with the European Research Council, projects, applications. Again, is it too complicated? Does it need simplifying as well? These are questions that we'd appreciate if you would comment on in the question box. But let's then move on to our next speaker, and then we can come back to these questions in the discussion. So our third and final speaker on this panel before we launch into the discussion is Dr. Mustafa Mornia Shohav, who is the chair of the Marie Curie Alumni Association. Mustafa has worked as a postdoctoral researcher at a ERC project at TU Vienna, and he's worked over the years at Austrian Science Fund, Austrian Research Promotion Agency, and the MSCA as well, and also on other national and international projects. He also provides training on career paths for researchers at universities and research institutions. So Mustafa, good morning or good afternoon even now. Welcome, and we look forward to hearing your presentation.
Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing well. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer for organizing this conference in this unprecedented situation. As you can see, today we will talk about how to attract and retain new talents. So I would like to give an overview of the Marie Curie Alumni Association, or in short MCAA, what we are doing on that. So just to broadly tell you the details of my talk. So there are three parts: why MCAA has a unique position and unique interest in these topics, as well as what are the global situation currently and how we are tackling these issues. MCAA is an international non-profit association, so currently we have over 16,000 members from 143 countries, so which means that it gives us a unique perspective of the issues of those countries. So the working condition of the researcher in the United States is definitely different than the working condition of a researcher in Netherlands or in Brazil or in Bulgaria. So these huge number of membership, as well as the active members, we are quite interested to work on these topics. So this gives us the meaningful opportunities to share, collaborate the researcher experiences. So what we do is basically provide career development opportunities and work in science policy together with our different stakeholders, similar-minded organizations, and provide ample networking opportunities for our members. I'll briefly explain that at the later part of the presentation. These are the general services. We, in order to attract members, we provide them microgrants so that there is enough participation from our members, as well as we want to listen to them and ask them questions, so we take part in different types of surveys. So now if I look at the global perspective, is what is happening in terms of the attracting and retaining employee as well as the researchers, I'd like to focus on this survey made by the Deloitte Global Human Capital Trends, where they find out the main challenges, that finding qualified experiences is the biggest challenge in current talent acquisition case. Now, if we move it to the engagement, this is a survey made by the Gallup in 2017, where you could see that on average 85% of the global employee are actively disengaged or not engaged in their job. And if you look at the Western Europe, this number rises up to the 91%, 90%. So this shows that not only the researchers, as well as we really need to hear the researchers, and this is the reason why we actually prepare the surveys for the researchers. So this is what we exactly did. Basically, in 2017, in the MCAA major survey, we have asked the researchers what is their barriers in prospective career. So we have received a response of 125 from 125 countries. So this number is quite unique, and the response number was over 5,500. So the size of the word actually proportionate to the number of the times the problem was mentioned. As you could see, the funding is the obvious problem, the grant and salary, but there are some other issues like careers, as well as the mentoring opportunity, work-life balances. So if I can basically for this talk, if I can categorize the three major challenges, three group of challenges. One is the expectation gap between employer and employee to attract highly skilled researchers. Second is the policy-related issues. So there are not enough policy implemented in terms of the research organizations, as well as the opportunity for career development. So let's first focus on how we as an organization are working on tackling with the expectation gap. So we teamed up with an HR company based in Antwerpen to analyze or to find out what are the expectation gap between employer and employee. So this project was funded by the Flemish government. So what happened here is that we made a twofold personality survey, one for the talents as well as for the employers. So for the talents, we sent it to the international or foreign researchers, highly skilled researchers, and then for the employer, we sent it to the specific companies or talent acquisition companies based in Flanders, because the main objective of this project was actually to find out the issues happening currently in Flanders. So the results was quite interesting, I would say. These are the 7 findings or 7 recommendations, but I would like you to focus on the first point, which is basically there is a distinguished gap between the foreign researcher as well as the employer. So mainly researcher prioritizes the ability to carve out their growth, and they want to grow as well as they want to have a career development opportunities. So this from this recommendation as well as other policy recommendation, we found out that it is quite important that academia should coach talents. As Stein mentioned in today's presentation, it's not only for the academic career, but also for the industrial career. So this is a model, or this is an MCA model which actually can be applied in different phases. So currently we are developing this model and potentially collaborating with different other organizations. Now, if I talk about from the policies term, as you probably know, that MCA was quite vocal during the Horizon Europe call, and we actually gave our recommendation to the European Commission on these 9 key aspects. We talked about the responsible research and innovation, open science, mental health of the researcher, which is greatly neglected in different parts of the world. And this is why we actually have a mentoring platform for mental health of the researcher to improve this situation. So this is called Referent Mentoring Program, which is an MCA policy group, working group initiative, as well as we gave our recommendation for how the research career assessment should look like in the open European science landscape. I mean, in the earlier speakers already talked about the impact factor and how we need to modernize this research career assessment, especially right now when open science is a big topic. So New Horizon was our partner on that, as well as we partnered with Eurodoc and Young Academy of Europe to give our recommendations on the open science and Plan S. On top of that, we made a specific declaration because if you look at the survey results, it's quite evident that the researcher thinks that their career is not sustainable. And in order to make the career sustainable, we had 4 recommendations, especially for different types of organizations, mainly for the employer. It can be academic, it can be research organizations. But most importantly, what we believe that there are not enough opportunity or career management services deployed at the organizations. What is happening right now is a bit more ad hoc basis. And so this is why one of our recommendations is to put emphasis also on transferable skills training. So now when we talk about the transferable skills training, and this is actually one of the reasons why members or why researchers are disengaged. There is a survey done in United Kingdom where 82% of the respondents actually say that they leave the current company because there was no opportunity to grow, there was no opportunity for career development, whereas the salary or benefit was really, or compensation benefit was really lower down. So this is another issue. When we talk about remuneration package, it also needs to be modernized. Now, also as an organization, we are providing different types of training. So this is just the training which is offered online due to the COVID situation. Right now, only in this month, you could see that. These are mainly webinar-based training, but we've put our focus on skills development. So we partner with, for example, the leader in communication, which is a Science Museum in Berlin, who gave a specific 2-day workshop on how to communicate science results for the general public or wider research community, as well as our Bridging Business and Science Working Group, who has their flagship event on how to train the researchers to start their own entrepreneurship venture. So this is right now ongoing, and this year probably this event might turn into an online event. Also, our policy working group frequently trains members or gives suggestions if anyone wants to work in the policy sector. Interestingly, several of our members, even current and past board members, are actually working who were in past was researcher and moved their career into the policy level. So they are the expert and they can give recommendation on how to start a career in policy arena. And then, of course, we also understand the fun side of it. So we have a communication working group flagship event on the dark side of research. So this was a yearly event happening in Edinburgh Fringe Festival, as well as the MSCA annual conference. So this is just a very short overview what our chapter and working group are doing. Basically, only in the last year, we had over 160 events on different types of transferable skills training, where more than 15,000 members actually participated. Just keep in mind, these are all our events, or most our events, are also open to non-members, so wider research community. So this number reflects a wider researcher community also. And of course, our flagship event is our annual conference in Vienna, which happened last year. We also talk and proactively work on the issues which we are very passionate about. Unfortunately, this year event was cancelled due to the COVID pandemic, and it was actually scheduled to happen this year in Croatia. But right now, the next 2021 event will also be in Croatia. So with this, I would like to invite you also to join this event. So last but not the least, another focus of ours is we are right now developing this mentoring academy. Once it is developed, it will also be open for the non-members. Currently, we are collecting feedback from the pilot phase members. And yeah, the idea is to basically give our members opportunity to talk with their mentors and guide the mentorship in a way so that it is beneficial for the specific member. So just to summarize, in terms of bridging the expectation gap, it is very important that there is effective communication between the employer and employee. As well as if from the policy side, Stein and other speakers already talked about that researchers' charter and code is an old document, and it doesn't take into account the open science landscape and new researcher career assessment. So these changes needs to be implemented, but most importantly, these changes needs to be implemented by the research organizations who are employing the researcher. So this is a challenge we are currently facing. And then, of course, provide more transferable skills training and career development plan. I would also like to show one of our project, which is My Super Science Heroes, to attract the young talent on STEM education. So basically, this is a comic book, and it's a series. Of course, the first superhero of our book was Marie Curie. The book is available now if you're interested. So I would like to thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to take part in the further discussion. Thank you.
welcome back, everybody, and thank you once again to Dr. Munir Shahab for your excellent presentation. So we've now had 3 presentations from different perspectives. So we had the perspective of the European Commission about what are the challenges and what are some of the solutions that they envisage in the upcoming decade. Our second perspective was from a similar perspective, but from the European Council, European Research Council, but also from a perspective of a researcher from a widening participation country. So also with that perspective of what are the challenges concretely in the Czech Republic, for example. And then finally, we got again a perspective from the researchers themselves. So from the MSCA presenting what researchers themselves say about what are the challenges that they face and about issues of career support. And so now I'm happy to open the discussion with all our speakers. And what we've seen then from the first panel is that we said simplifying and synergizing. So simplifying procedures, synergizing different programs would be a way forwards for widening participation, for retaining and attracting researchers. Maybe we could start with you, Dr. Delorey, from your perspective. Do you think that's something we spoke about it as a quick win, something that could be done relatively easily? Do you share that perspective, and what do you think are the prospects for addressing those priorities?
Yes, I share them. I think we have already an excellent example in developing synergies, and this is the MSCA co-fund action, where MSCA co-funds national programs, for instance, for training and career development and mobility of researchers. But part of the funds need to come from national institutions. We want to expand that. Given the industrial talents study we did last year, we've seen there are a lot of opportunities for researchers to be mobile, especially across sectors, from academia to business, but also from business or governments to academia. So to unlock that potential, and we intend to build a new initiative, a kind of a portal where we bundle all these funding opportunities. We intend to provide guidance and even strengthen them through Horizon Europe. So I definitely believe the synergies are crucial, and I'm now also only talking about synergies with national funds. We of course have synergies between different EU programs, Erasmus, MSCA. We have the Erasmus for Entrepreneurs, for instance, which is also one of these opportunities. So yes, definitely on top of our list.
Okay, thank you very much for that intervention. Dr. Jungwirth, would you also agree? I mean, I don't know to what extent the simplification applies to ERC grants as well, and do you have any comment on that recommendation that things get streamlined, simplified, so that maybe it gets a bit easier to access some of these grants? Would you like to comment on that?
Well, we tend to think in ERC that the procedures and the administration around ERC grants is already very simple, and I think this is what's the common feedback from scientists. What is very difficult is the scientific part, to get the grants on the merits of excellence. But in terms of procedures, we hope that there are no administrative barriers, and in fact, this is one of the work that we are constantly engaged with European Commission to maintain that low level of administration of ERC grants, and it's something that we are in constant touch with the European.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. I think while you're here, maybe to also, if I could ask you, if you wouldn't mind to comment on your perspective from the Czech Republic as well. So you mentioned these in your presentation, these challenges related to, I guess, closed and more traditional research communities with regards to the use of English. You mentioned inbleeding and this issue of academic freedom without the accountability bit. So maybe could you reflect on your experiences from the Czech Republic, on where you see it going in the Czech Republic, and what initiatives are taking place to address some of those challenges, and are these successful?
Yeah, well, I think that these are real issues. I don't know the situation in Croatia in great detail, but I think in general in our type of countries, these would be general issues. And and I think that we will not really move forward unless there is, let's say, critical mass of people in the individual research institutions that have hands-on experience with excellent research. And excellent research is impossible without international experience. So if we don't have that, the system, because the system has to be to large extent autonomous, but we need to have enough people with hands-on experience with excellent international research. So I think the most critical, many things can be done on the government level, but I think the most critical thing is for the individual research institutes, universities, to introduce programs for attracting people from abroad. It could be nationals, which are currently working abroad, or it could be internationals. It doesn't really matter. To the universities, top talents, so that you start to build the critical mass of people who have the right experience and change the overall climate in the institutions. So we have several such programs recently introduced in the Academy of Sciences and also in some of the top research universities for attracting young talents. And they, in many ways, are ERC is the role model for them. And in many of these programs, in fact, the sign of success of these programs is how many ERC grants have been actually by these people that have been recruited in these programs.
Sure. Thank you. So in fact, and so what you're saying is that the national level, national policy plays an important role, but you can also address this at the university level or at the research institute level. So it doesn't have to come from the top down. So leadership within research institutes and other research organizations can address this challenge themselves.
Well, the institutions want to be autonomous, and they have to be autonomous. But that also means that they have to take their own responsibility.
Thank you for your comment. Now, we had a poll for our participants at the beginning of this panel through the chat, and the question was, does the MSCA, to what extent do you agree that the MSCA contributes to attracting, rewarding, and retaining talents in the EU? And 70% think that the MSCA contributes a lot. 22% think moderately, and 8% believe that it doesn't contribute enough. So the vast majority do think that the MSCA is a crucial program in this area. Dr. Munir, would you like to comment on, from your perspective, again, from the bottom-up perspective, of why you think the MSCA is such an important program in this context?
Well, first of all, thank you very much. I think this is quite an interesting result. If you look at the MSCA program itself, it basically promotes the mobility, international mobility, right? So even for ITN or individual fellows, they need to go to another country to do their research. And right now in both the ITN, there are the fellowship or secondment options. So this basically, as Professor Thomas said, that international research experience is kind of mandatory right now in the current global landscape. So in order to prepare researcher for the next stage, basically this MSCA program, be it the co-fund, be it the individual fellowship, are actually preparing the researcher and enhancing the international mobility. So on that sense, I do agree with most of our majority of the attendee or who participated in the poll that it is actually helping a lot. And interestingly, in the last MSCA conference, which was in Romania, I believe, where we have seen this on the first hand, basically, because we have seen the researcher who took the MSCA individual fellowship, went to the other countries or where the research infrastructure is better, and then came back to Romania. And right now, I could recall at least 4 of them are basically the permanent researcher in the professor level. And only the MSCA fellowship actually enhances that. And when we talk about this, of course, also today in the keynote speech, Mrs. Maria Gabriel also mentioned about that there is a gap, but I believe there are opportunity for the different part or different regions, especially where the research infrastructure is not developed as such, to use this MSCA opportunity and enhance and increase their research collaboration opportunities.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that intervention. We've received a couple of questions from the audience, so I'd like to take a few minutes to address those as well. This is a question from Brian Cahill to Dr. Delorey. The question is that you recognize in your presentation the importance of the precariousness and reduce the attractiveness of research careers for early career researchers. And the question is, it's a difficult question, is the reaction of the MSCA to the COVID-19 crisis too inflexible to help current MSCA researchers reach the goals of their proposed research and continue their careers? Could MSCA learn from other funders, such as the Wellcome Trust, the DFG, who addressed the crisis very quickly with contract extensions? And this particularly the case for those with families and young children. So would you like to comment on that tough question?
That's a very difficult question, which I would like to pass to my colleagues from the MSCA unit in the last panel. Okay. I won't be able to answer that. Great.
Okay. Well, I'll definitely we will have some speakers coming back later in the afternoon, so it'd be good if they can also comment on that. But yes, it's in any case, it's good to hear. Sure, please.
The recovery package. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Mr. Stein, sorry.
Of course, the Commission is launching a big recovery package to step up efforts to ensure that economy and society comes out of the crisis, and R&I is crucial into that. Supportive researchers, supportive institutions will be part of that. For instance, the very good example of the open access to all data for the COVID-19 related research has helped immensely to speed up the knowledge in that. And what MSCA did is 100 projects. It shows that there is a great advantage in, on the one hand, doing bottom-up research, but on the other hand, being able to quickly and rapidly move all these results in a certain team forward. So I guess this is an example that we certainly need to pursue further. Thanks.
May I add some points with that on that topic? Basically, it is our members, MCA members, who actually raised their voice on that, and as an organization, we supported that. We talked with RIA as well as the MSCA unit. There are some restriction, and MSCA unit, we are trying to work with the MSCA unit to provide a suitable solution. After our meeting with the MSCA unit, we actually launched a survey where we asked who are the fellows who are specifically affected, and their problem are not solved by the recommendation from the MSCA unit or RIA. So they published a recommendation, specific 4 recommendations. So if those are not solved, they should contact us as well as the PO. I do understand it's a very delicate topic, but I would like to point out a couple of issues to the MSCA unit, DJ, RTD, that these researchers, in this session, actually, we talked about the social protection, right? Social protection of the researcher. Now, this is completely different types of fellowship than any other fellowship. A researcher went to an unknown country, and now COVID, basically every one of our lives are affected by that. And they can see that their colleagues from other funding agencies are getting extension, whereas the prestigious program like MSCA are not getting extended. So this is basically another trigger. It might be another trigger for disengagement in future. So I would like to kindly ask the MSCA unit, as well as who are responsible for this issue, to kindly look into that and at least propose a solution which can help these individual cases. Another issue or feedback from the researcher side, we know that MSCA unit tried their best to help these issues, and one of the recommendations is to contact the PO, a project officer. But when a researcher contacts a project officer, the university administration, including the coordinator and supervisor, get automatically notified about that. So this is not a proper way that if I, as a researcher, would like to communicate something, there needs to be a confidentiality agreement. I cannot talk with PO without notifying to my to my supervisor. So these issues needs to be actually taken into account also in broader perspective.
Thank you very much for that intervention. And it's interesting how, in fact, the discussion goes from like high-level policy to actual the details of the program, and both of those are crucial for individuals at the end of the day. So let me bring in one more question before we reach the end of the session. So we got a question from Branwen Hyde. And the question is, what mechanisms at the EU level are being put in place to support the career development of experienced researchers who would not meet ERC requirements, and the possible new measures being put in place for the MSCA and that would benefit from additional training and or mobility? So are there, yes, so I don't know if anyone would like to specifically take that question. So new measures being put in place to support the career development of experienced researchers who don't meet ERC requirements. Any specific response to that question? Maybe Dr. De La Rey?
Yeah, I can try to reply. So new developments we have in mind regarding the training and career development of researchers and the push for more intersectoral mobility will obviously focus on early career researchers in the first place, but not only on that. So any career stage should be supported. We are particularly looking also for researchers or people from business or other non-academic sectors to re-enter in academic sector, to bring in their expertise and transfer it to early career researchers. So that is possible. And I must say, as far as I know, MSCA allows that as well. For instance, in the current research innovation staff exchange, and also perhaps in the future in other actions.
Thank you very much. Are there any other comments on that specific question of new schemes to address experienced researchers? Okay, if not, maybe what I could do now, since we're reaching the end of our session, is just to summarize and link this panel to the first panel we had. So some of the recommendations, or at least conclusions so far, have been to simplify procedures in some programs at least, maybe some have already achieved this, synergize with other existing schemes and create better synergies, and that's at the, let's say, EU level. At the national level, we've spoken about in widening countries, in a way breaking the kind of traditional and conservative hold on some parts of the research environments and research systems by having a range of measures to try and in a way normalize internationalization and mobility as a part of the system. So using English as a language within the system, introducing requirements for international either publications or experiences within the system, and in a way also addressing these issues of accountability, and so not having academic freedom without accountability. And then at the bottom up level, we've heard of the importance of career support for researchers and support for this work-life balance that we've heard about as well. So supporting researchers to both in their research careers and in their private lives, better coaching them, better preparing them for their career choices, better preparing them for with the skills that they need to go through their careers. And then finally, at the kind of program level, really to also pay attention to these small details within the programs and within the contracts and within the small print, which also actually affects individuals at the end of the day. So to make sure that we improve all of those. So with those conclusions, I would like to give a big thanks to our speakers today, Dr. Delarey, Dr. Jungert, and Dr. Munir Shaurav, for joining us, and for to all the audience members as well who sent in your questions. Thank you very much, and we are now ready to move on to our next session. So to our speakers, thank you and goodbye.